For weeks I heard chains dragging in the backyard. 3 in the morning, every single night, I would go down trembling. There was nothing there. My son looked at me with pity. Dad, it is just your nerves. You're confused. Until one night I installed a hidden camera, and I saw my own son entering the backyard with the chains in his hand, smiling. If this story gives you goosebumps, subscribe. I upload real stories every day that could be yours. Tell me in the comments what country you are watching from. My name is Arthur. I am 82 years old. I was a literature professor at the state high school for 45 years. I taught entire generations. Some of my students are now senators, doctors, writers. They used to greet me on the street with respect. Mr. Arthur, they would say, and they would stop to chat, to ask for advice, to ask about Grace. And I walked with my head held high, with my Grace on my arm, proud of the life we had built, dollar by dollar, book by book, class by class. But that morning at 3:15, standing barefoot in my son's backyard, trembling with cold and rage, with my heart beating so hard I felt it was going to explode, I understood that none of that mattered anymore. Because when you are old, you become invisible. And the worst part is that you become invisible to the ones you love the most. The noise woke me up, a metallic dragging sound, loud, harsh, as if someone was pulling iron chains across the concrete floor of the backyard. It was not a dream. I heard it clearly. So clearly I felt the sound inside my chest. 3 times. I sat up in bed with my heart beating fast, with my mouth dry, with that fear that paralyzes you but also forces you to move. I put my feet on the cold floor and felt the chill climb up my legs. The house was dark and silent. Everyone was sleeping, or so I thought. I put on my slippers, grabbed the cane that I almost never use, but that Cameron insists I carry just in case, as if I were invalid, and I went down the stairs slowly, holding on to the railing. Every step creaked under my weight. Every creak sounded like a scream in the middle of that darkness. When I reached the backyard, I opened the back door. The cold February air hit my face like a slap. I turned on the backyard light. Nothing. Only the concrete floor wet from the night dew, shining under the yellow light of the bulb. The pots with the jasmines that Grace planted with her own hands, that she cared for, as if they were her children, and that now Elise waters without any affection just because they have to be watered. The brick wall that faces the back street. I walked slowly, checking every corner, every shadow, every space where there could be something. Nothing. No chains, no object that could have caused that noise. But I had heard it, as clearly as I hear my own voice now, as real as the cold that soaked into my bones. I stood there with the cane in my hand, feeling the cold seep through my thin pajamas, feeling the dampness of the night on my wrinkled skin, wondering if I was truly going crazy. If Grace had taken not only my heart, but also my sanity. And just then a voice behind me made me jump. Dad enough. It was Cameron. He was standing in the doorframe with his arms crossed over his chest, his frown deep and that look I knew too well. That look of boredom, of exhaustion, of someone who is tired of dealing with something. As if I were a naughty child who refuses to sleep. As if I were a problem that needs to be solved. It is your nerves, Dad. There is nothing here. His voice was flat, without emotion. I tried to explain to him. Son, I heard chains. I swear by your mother's memory. 3 times. Someone was dragging something heavy. Cameron shook his head slow, like someone talking to a demented person, like someone explaining something to someone who cannot understand. No one was dragging anything, Dad. There is no one here but us. There are no chains. There is nothing. His tone was firm, definitive. There was no room for argument. There was no room for my truth. He took me by the arm, not with affection, but with that impatient firmness. Come on. You are going to catch a cold, and tomorrow you will be worse. While we went up the stairs, I tried to insist. My voice was trembling. Cameron, I'm not making this up. I know what I heard. He interrupted me without turning to look at me, without even pausing. Dad, it is 3 in the morning. We will talk tomorrow. As if my words did not matter. As if I did not matter. We reached my room. He let go of my arm, almost in a hurry. Try to sleep. And he left, closing the door behind him with more force than necessary. A soft slam, but final. I stayed there sitting on the edge of my bed, with my hands shaking not from cold, but from helplessness. From that impotent rage you get when no one believes you, when your own word is worth nothing. Because what hurts the most is not that they do not believe you. What hurts the most is seeing in the eyes of your own son that they have already given up on you, that you are no longer the man you were, that you are just a nuisance that must be tolerated, a senile old man that must be endured until when? Until what? 3 months ago, when I buried Grace, I fell apart. She was everything to me. 42 years together. 42 years of waking up by her side, of hearing her laugh, of watching her cook, humming old songs. I saw her die in the hospital, slowly, painfully holding my hand, with the little strength she had left, looking at me, with those eyes that did not see well anymore, but looked at me as if I were the only thing that existed in the world, telling me with a broken voice, almost without air, "Arthur, do not stay alone. Promise me you are not going to stay alone." I promised her I would be okay. I lied. I lied to her while I cried. I was not okay. I could not be okay. I went back to our house, and everything reminded me of her. Her coffee cup in the cupboard, the one with painted flowers, her shawl on the back of the armchair, still with her perfume, her scent on the sheets that I did not want to wash because it was the last thing I had left of her. I could not do it. Cameron arrived on the 3rd day. He found me sitting in the living room, unbathed, without eating, staring at nothing. He hugged me. For the first time in years, he hugged me. "I do not want you to be alone, Dad. Come live with me. We have space. Gavin misses you." And I broke an empty without strength to fight accepted. The first days at Cameron's house were good, almost happy. Elise, my daughter-in-law, cooked well, not like Grace. No one cooks like Grace, but well, with apparent affection. Gavin, my 19-year-old grandson, came to chat with me in the afternoons. He would sit next to me and ask me things. About college, about girls, about life, about my classes, about the books I had read. I gave him advice. He laughed. There was light in his eyes when he listened to me. There was a connection. Cameron would arrive from work, and we would have dinner together, the 4 of us like a family. I felt welcomed, protected. I thought that maybe, just maybe, I could survive without Grace, that maybe the promise I made her had not been a lie. But little by little, something changed. I do not know exactly when, but I felt it. Gavin stopped coming as much. His visits became spread out. Elise started answering me with one-word answers without looking at me. And Cameron started looking at me differently, as if I were a mistake he had made, and now did not know how to get rid of, as if he had picked me up out of obligation, and now regretted it. The dinners became silent. I tried to make conversation. They nodded without listening. Their answers were automatic, empty. The noises started a month ago. The first time was a loud bang on the ceiling of my room, as if someone had dropped something very heavy in the room above. A dull, violent sound that made the ceiling vibrate, but there is no room above. It is the roof. I know because Cameron told me when he showed me the house. I went down to the living room, scared with my heart in my throat. Cameron was watching television, lying on the sofa, calm. "Son, did you hear that?" He did not even turn around. His eyes remained on the screen. "Hear what, Dad?" I explained to him. The bang, the ceiling, how loud it had been. He looked at me sideways for just a second. I did not hear anything. Elise was in the kitchen. I called her. "Elise, did you hear a bang upstairs?" She came out drying her hands. "No, Arthur, I did not hear anything." She had not heard anything either. I felt confused, disoriented. I went back to my room slowly, as if the floor were going to open up under my feet. But the bang had been real as the beating of my heart. Only no one else had heard it. And there my hell began. There my doubt began. Then it was the footsteps. Footsteps in the hallway at 2 or 3 in the morning. Slow, heavy footsteps, like boots, like someone walking without hurry. I would wake up startled with my heart racing. I would open the door of my room slowly. I would peek my head out. The hallway was empty, dark, silent, as if there had never been anything. But I had heard them. I had felt them. One night, I dared to go out. I gathered the courage I had left and walked down the hallway to Cameron's room. Every step of mine was an echo in that darkness. I knocked on the door. Once, twice. He opened, disheveled, sleepy, annoyed. "What is it, Dad?" His voice had that tone of someone who cannot take it anymore. I told him I had heard footsteps, that someone had walked in front of my door. He sighed deeply, tired, as if I were a weight he was carrying. "Dad, no one is walking. We are all sleeping. Look at me. I was asleep." Elise appeared behind him in her nightgown with her hair down, with an unfriendly face. "Arthur, it is 3 in the morning. Please." And they closed the door, slowly. But they closed it. I stayed there in the dark hallway, trembling, feeling like a madman, like someone who is losing his mind and does not realize it. Then came the voices, low voices, whispers, as if someone were speaking in secret in the living room, conversations I could not understand, but that were there. I would go down barefoot slowly, trying not to make noise, and when I reached the living room, there was no one. Only silence. Only my heartbeat. The doors that opened by themselves. The patio door, the pantry door. I would find them open in the early morning, swinging gently with the draft. I would close them with shaking hands. I checked them 2 or 3 times. The next morning, when I commented during breakfast, Cameron would say, without looking at me, "Dad, that door has always been closed." No one opened it, and Elise would nod while serving coffee. And I started to doubt. I started to think terrible things. Could it be that I am losing my mind? Could it be that Grace took my sanity with her when she left? Could it be that grief is driving me crazy? But something inside me, something stubborn, something that comes from 45 years of teaching young people to think, to question, to not accept things without proof, told me no. Something is happening, and it is not you. It is not you who is wrong. One morning I went down to breakfast. Elise was making scrambled eggs. The smell filled the kitchen, but it did not wake up my appetite. Cameron was reading the newspaper, turning the pages with mechanical movements. Gavin was on his cell phone with headphones on in his own world. No one greeted me. No one looked up when I entered. I sat in silence in my usual spot. Elise put the plate in front of me without looking at me, like someone fulfilling a procedure. Cameron turned a page of the newspaper with a sigh of annoyance. I tried to speak. I needed to hear my own voice. I needed to know that I still existed. "How did you sleep?" My voice sounded weak, small. Oh, no one answered. The silence was so heavy, I felt it in my chest. Gavin did not even look up from his cell phone. I felt a knot in my throat choking me. So this was it. I was no longer part of the family. I was a piece of furniture, an old piece of furniture that takes up space, and that no one wants anymore, but they do not know how to throw away either. And I understood that the noises, the voices, the doors were not the worst part. The worst part was the silence. The silence that surrounded me every time I entered a room. The silence that told me I did not matter any more, that I was already dead to them. My glasses disappeared on a Tuesday morning. I had left them as always on the nightstand before sleeping. All my life I have done the same, since Grace gave me that nightstand 30 years ago. I leave them there next to the glass of water, and the alarm clock I no longer use because I wake up alone. It is a habit of decades, a ritual, something I do without thinking, like breathing. But that morning when I woke up and reached out to take them, they were not there. I searched the nightstand, feeling with my hands, because without glasses I see almost nothing. Nothing. Under the bed, nothing. I checked the floor, the sheets, the dresser, even inside the drawers, thinking maybe I'd put them away by mistake. Nothing. I went down to breakfast, confused, squinting my eyes to see the steps. "Elise, have you seen my glasses?" She was washing dishes with her back to me. No, Arthur, where did you leave them? I explained to her. On the nightstand, as always. She dried her hands on her apron and went up with me. We checked together. She looked in places where I had already searched. They did not appear. Then she opened the bathroom door, and there they were on the sink next to the soap in a place where I never in my life had left them. Look, Arthur, here they are. Elise handed them to me with a kind smile, one of those smiles that do not reach the eyes. But her eyes said something else. They said, "Poor thing, he does not remember anything anymore. He is already bad." I took the glasses with shaking hands. I looked at them as if they were strange objects, as if they were not mine. Elise, I did not leave them here, I swear. I never leave my glasses in the bathroom. My voice sounded desperate. She nodded slowly with that condescending patience you use with children or with the sick. Sometimes one does things and does not realize it, Arthur. It is normal. Do not worry. But I worried a lot. I went down to the kitchen with my glasses on, but with my mind clouded. Cameron was already there drinking coffee, reading something on his cell phone. Elise whispered something in his ear. I did not manage to hear what. I saw how Cameron looked at me sideways with that expression of fake concern I hated so much. That expression that said, "Poor Dad," but that actually thought, "This is going to be a problem." I said nothing. I put my glasses on, properly adjusting them on my nose, but inside, something twisted. Because I knew with every cell in my body, with every fiber of my being, that I had not left those damn glasses in the bathroom. 3 days later, my pills disappeared. I take pills for blood pressure, 2 every morning with breakfast. I keep them in a white bottle that I always leave in the drawer of my dresser. That morning, I opened the drawer like every morning. They were not there. The drawer was there with my usual things, my handkerchief, my wallet, Grace's photo, but not the pills. I searched all the drawers. I opened them all. I checked them one by one. Nothing. Panic started to rise in my chest. I need those pills. I went down to the kitchen, almost running. Has anyone seen my pills? My voice came out louder than normal. Cameron was eating toast with jam. He looked up slowly. "What pills, Dad?" I explained to him. "The blood pressure ones. The white bottle. The one that is always in my drawer." He frowned. He chewed slowly. He swallowed. "Did you look properly? Sometimes they are where one does not remember." I felt like an idiot, like a child being scolded. Yes, Cameron. I looked for them. I looked everywhere. Elise appeared at that moment from the living room with the bottle in her hand, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. They were on the living room table, Arthur next to the magazines. She said it with such naturalness, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, as if I took my pills for a walk around the house. I stood paralyzed. I had never taken my pills to the living room. Never. It made no sense. Cameron left the toast on the plate. He looked at me serious with his eyes narrowed. "Dad, this is happening too often." His tone was soft at first, but there was something hard underneath. Firm, authoritative. "What is happening?" I asked, although I knew perfectly well what he referred to. I knew, and I was afraid to hear it. That you lose things. That you leave them in strange places and you do not remember. The glasses. Now the pills. Yesterday you asked me twice where Gavin was when he was sitting in the living room. Had I asked that? I did not remember. Or did I? I was not sure. I tried to defend myself. "Son, I did not leave the pills in the living room. I never carry the pills." He raised his hand, cutting me off like you cut off someone who can no longer understand. "Dad, listen to me. It is not your fault. I am not blaming you. At your age it is normal that there are confusions, small forgetfulness. It is part of the process. At my age. That cursed phrase again, as if 82 years were a disease. I'm not confused, Cameron. My voice came out stronger than I wanted, almost a shout. He sighed deeply. He rubbed his face. "Dad, I think we should consult someone. A doctor, just to be sure, to rule things out." The floor opened under my feet. "A doctor? For what?" so he can tell me I am crazy. Cameron stood up, approached, put a hand on my shoulder, a heavy hand, to take care of you, Dad, to make sure you're okay, that it is nothing serious. But his look said something else. His look said to confirm what we already know. That you are losing your mind, that you are useless, that something must be done with you. Elise nodded from the kitchen, drying her hands. It is for the best, Arthur. My aunt went through the same thing a few years ago. It started the same way, losing things, and it is better to prevent. It is better to know what is happening before it is too late. Prevent what? My madness, my death. Rage rose in my chest, then humiliation, and then a deep fear, visceral. Because if everyone around me told me I was confused, what if it was true? What if I was really losing my mind and I did not realize it? What if Grace had taken not only my heart, but also my sanity? That doubt terrified me more than any night noise, more than any open door. The appointment was 2 days later. Cameron took me in his car. I was quiet, sunk in the passenger seat, looking out the window at the streets of Chicago that I knew so well. Streets I had walked thousands of times with Grace. We passed in front of the city high school where I taught for decades. I saw the students entering, laughing, pushing each other alive, full of future. I felt a painful nostalgia pierce my chest. That was my world. Those young people had been my life. And now I was going to have a doctor confirm that I was no longer sane, that I was no longer useful. We arrived at a private clinic in a nice neighborhood, modern, cold, impersonal, smelling of disinfectant and air conditioning. Cameron parked and opened the door for me, as if I could not do it alone, as if I were an invalid. We entered. The receptionist smiled at us with empty professionalism. Dr. Vance is waiting for you. Come in, please. Dr. Anselmo Vance was a man of about 50 thin, with thick-rimmed glasses and a smile that did not reach his eyes. One of those professional smiles that are put on and taken off like a mask. He received us in his office. White walls, diplomas in gold frames, hanging perfectly aligned, a desk of dark wood, polished without a speck of dust. He indicated a chair in front of him. Cameron sat next to me too close. The doctor opened a folder with my name written on it. Well, Arthur, tell me, how have you been feeling lately? He started with easy questions, ones anyone can answer. My name, my age, what year we were in, what city, what day it was today. I answered everything correctly, fast, without hesitation, but then came more personal, more painful questions. Your wife, when did she pass away? I swallowed saliva. I felt my throat closing. 3 months ago. My voice broke a little. He wrote something in his notebook. And how have you handled that loss? Have you had episodes of deep sadness? Crying. How do you handle losing the person with whom you shared your whole life? How do you handle burying your soul? You do not handle it. You survive. Barely. After several minutes of questions that made me feel like a specimen in a laboratory, the doctor asked me to leave for a moment. I need to speak with your son alone, Arthur. It is routine, standard procedure. I nodded. I stood up slowly. My knees creaked. I went out to the hallway. I sat on one of those uncomfortable waiting room chairs upholstered in fake green leather. From there, although the door was closed, I could hear murmurs. Cameron's voice. The doctor's voice. I did not understand the words, but I understood the tone. They were talking about me, deciding about me, designing my future without me being present, as if I were not there, as if I had no voice or vote over my own life. I remembered when Cameron was 7 years old and got chicken pox. I took him to the doctor, carrying him in my arms because he did not want to walk, because his whole body hurt. He cried the whole way. I do not want them to inject me, Dad. I am scared. I caressed his sweaty hair, spoke to him softly. They are not going to inject you, my son. They are just going to check you. Dad is here. Nothing bad is going to happen. And I was right. The doctor checked him, gave him syrup, and Cameron hugged me, relieved. Thanks, Dad. I was his protector, his hero, the one who chased away the fears. Now the roles were reversed. Now I was the scared child, and he was the adult deciding for me. They called me again. The door opened. I entered. Cameron had a serious expression, almost grave. The doctor, too. They were prepared. They had reached conclusions. I sat down. I felt the chair was too low, that they were up high, and I was down low. Dr. Vance clasped his hands on the desk, with fingers intertwined, and looked at me with that professional pity I hate so much. That pity that says, "Poor old man," without saying anything. "Arthur, I have spoken with your son. He tells me that lately you have had episodes of confusion, objects appearing in places where you do not remember leaving them, noises no one else hears, even some repetitions in conversations." I tried to interrupt. I wanted to defend myself. Dr. I. He raised his hand gently but firmly. "Let me finish, please. It is important you listen to this." And I stayed seated, quiet, feeling how they condemn me. "This is not rare, Arthur. It is not unusual. After a significant loss like your wife's, it is common for the brain to react in unexpected ways. Confusion, disorientation, even mild auditory hallucinations. It is a response to emotional trauma. Hallucinations, that word hit me like a fist in the stomach, like a knife. Doctor, I am not hallucinating. What I hear is real. What I see is real. I know the difference between the real and the imaginary. I was a professor for 45 years. I taught logic. The doctor nodded condescendingly, with that patience one has with crazy people. "I am sure that for you it is real, Arthur. I am sure you feel it as real. But that does not mean it is objectively real. The mind can play tricks on us, especially at your age and after a trauma. Objectively real. What did that mean? That my reality did not count anymore. That what I lived, felt, heard, saw was no longer valid. That I was no longer a reliable witness of my own life." Cameron intervened, leaning forward. "Doctor, what can we do?" "Is there treatment?" The doctor took out a prescription pad. He started writing with an expensive pen. "I am going to order some studies. Nothing invasive. Nothing painful. An electroencephalogram. Blood tests. A simple scan. And meanwhile, we are going to start a mild treatment to help you rest better, to calm the anxiety. Treatment." Another word that sounded like a sentence. Another word that meant they had already given up on me. We left the office. Cameron had the prescription in his hand, folded, carefully kept in his pocket, as if it were an important document, as if it were a verdict. I walked behind him, feeling small, tiny, invisible. In the car on the way back, neither spoke. The silence was heavy, dense, full of unspoken things. When we arrived at the house, Cameron helped me out of the car, although I did not need help. He put his hand on my back. "Dad, you're going to be okay. You just have to trust us. We are going to take care of you. Everything is going to be okay." But his voice did not sound comforting. It did not sound like a promise. It sounded like a goodbye, as if he had already decided that I was no longer the man I was, that I was just a confused old man who needed to be controlled. And that night, lying in my bed, staring at the dark ceiling, listening to the heavy silence of that house that was not mine, I felt something inside me break. Something deep. Something I did not know if could ever be fixed again. And I asked myself for the first time, with true terror, if I was really losing my mind. A week after the diagnosis, Cameron asked me to accompany him to the bank. "We have to update some papers, Dad." "For the house." I nodded without understanding much. "The house. Our house. The one Grace and I bought decades ago with a teacher's salary that was barely enough. That house I left closed when I came to live with my son." We arrived at the Santander Bank on Michigan Avenue. It was hot. The line was long. Cameron took me straight to the manager's desk, a man named Mr. Leake, a man in a gray suit and red tie who greeted us with that mechanical kindness of someone who serves hundreds of people a day. We sat down. The manager opened a folder. "Good Mr. Ferrer, we are here to process the power of attorney, correct?" Power of attorney? I did not understand. I looked at Cameron. He nodded. The manager passed me some papers. I just need you to sign here, Arthur. I took the pen, but before signing, something made me stop. What am I signing? I asked. Cameron leaned forward, almost taking the papers from my hands. Dad, they are house formalities, so I can help you with payments. Accounts, those things. I tried to read. The letters looked blurry. The manager cleared his throat, uncomfortably. And then Cameron said it, loud, clear, in front of the manager, in front of the employees passing by, in front of the woman waiting in the next chair. My dad does not handle numbers well anymore, sir. That is why I'm here. I felt my face burn. Everyone looked at me. The manager nodded with fake understanding. The woman next to me looked away with pity. I tried to defend myself. Cameron, I still. He interrupted me with a soft but firm gesture on my shoulder. Dad, let me handle it. You just sign here. He put the pen in my hand. He pointed to the line. I looked at the papers. The words danced in front of my eyes. Power, representation, assets. I felt something very important was happening, and I did not fully understand it. But Cameron was there waiting, and the manager too, and people were watching. So I signed. My hand shook as I wrote my name, Arthur Ferrer, and I felt that with that signature I was handing over something I would never get back. We left the bank. Cameron walked ahead, putting the papers in his leather briefcase. I walked behind, feeling exposed, humiliated. Does not handle numbers well anymore. How dare he? I had managed my household finances for 40 years. I had paid for Cameron's college with my teacher's salary. I had saved dollar by dollar to buy that house. And now he was telling me in front of strangers that I was no longer useful for that. I wanted to yell at him, but when I opened my mouth, only a tired sigh came out, because a part of me was starting to believe what everyone told me, that I was no longer capable, that I was no longer useful, that I was just a burden. 2 days later, Elise asked me to accompany her to the pharmacy. I need to buy your medicine, Arthur. You ran out? We walked to the Walgreens on the corner. I knew that place well. I had gone thousands of times. The pharmacist was a young girl named Lucy, always kind. Elise gave her the prescription. Lucy started looking for the medicine on the shelves. Then she looked at me. Arthur, are these the same ones you always take? I opened my mouth to answer, but Elise got ahead of me. Yes, Lucy, they are the same. He does not remember the schedule well anymore, but I give them to him. Lucy nodded. She looked at me with pity. I stayed there quiet, invisible, while they talked about me as if I were not present. They paid. We left. Elise carried the bag of medicines. I walked in silence. Why had I not defended myself? Why had I not said, yes, I do remember my schedule, that I have been taking those damn pills for years? But I did not do it, because something in me was already broken, something that made me doubt myself, that made me think. Maybe they are right. Maybe I do not remember anymore. Maybe I am losing my mind, and I am the only one who does not realize it. That doubt was worse than any humiliation, because when you doubt your own mind, you have nothing left to hold on to. The next day I went for a walk alone. I needed air. I needed to get out of that house that felt more and more like a prison. I walked through the streets of the neighborhood where Cameron lived. Clean streets, big houses, people I did not know. I passed a grocery store, a small park where some children were playing. I sat on a bench to rest, and then I heard my name. Arthur, is that you? I turned around. It was Mrs. Evelyn Cameron's neighbor, a lady of about 60. Always well-dressed, always with that kind but curious smile. Mrs. Evelyn, nice to see you. She sat next to me. She smelled of expensive perfume. She looked at me with that expression I already knew. Pity sorrow. Arthur, is everything okay? Her tone was that of someone who already knows the answer. Yes, Mrs. Evelyn, everything is fine. She nodded slowly, like someone who does not believe what she hears. Then she lowered her voice as if sharing a secret. It is just that Cameron commented to me that you are a little scatterbrained lately. I felt like they were stabbing me with a knife. Cameron, my own son, talking about me with the neighbors, telling them I was sick in the head. I tried to smile. No, Mrs. Evelyn, I am fine, just adjusting to living here. She patted my hand. Oh, Arthur, I understand. My mother went through the same thing. It is difficult, but you have to accept it. Accept what? My madness. My uselessness. I stood up from the bench. Excuse me, Mrs. Evelyn. I have to go back. She nodded. Take care, Arthur. I walked back to Cameron's house with my heart tight. I remembered when I walked through the streets of downtown. Around the high school, people greeted me with respect. Mr. Arthur. Professor, how are you? Mr. Ferrer, nice to see you. They stopped me in coffee shops and bookstores in the squares. They wanted to chat. They wanted to ask me for advice. They wanted to know about literature. I was someone. I was a man with weight, with history, with dignity. And now I was the scatterbrained old man people whispered about. When I entered the house, Cameron was in the living room watching television. He did not greet me. I went up to my room. I sat on the bed. I took out my wallet. Inside was Grace's photo, the same one I had carried since the day of her death. I looked at it. Her brown eyes, her soft smile, her hair tied in that bun I liked so much. My love, what is happening? I asked her in a low voice. She only smiled in that photo. She had no answers. I put the photo away again, and I realized that I had not only lost my wife, I had lost my dignity, my voice, my place in the world. And the worst was that I did not know how to get it back. I did not even know if I wanted to try. That night, during dinner, Cameron said something to me that froze my blood. We were eating in silence. Elise was serving soup. Gavin had not even come down. Cameron cut a piece of bread, and without looking at me, said, Dad. I spoke with the doctor. He says if the episodes continue, maybe it would be better to look for a place where they take better care of you, where there are nurses, where you are not alone. A place. He did not say nursing home. He did not say psychiatric clinic. But I understood perfectly. I left the spoon on the plate. You want to throw me out? My voice trembled. Cameron looked at me finally. No, Dad. It is not about throwing you out. It is about taking care of you. But his look said something else. It said I have already decided. And that was when something changed inside me. Something small. Something dark. A spark of rage. Because for the first time I started thinking, what if all this isn't me? Gavin stopped coming down to have dinner with me. Before, when I just arrived, my grandson came down every night. He sat next to me. He asked me things. He told me about college, about his friends, about the girls he liked. I gave him advice. He laughed. There was a connection, but little by little, those dinners ended. First it was Grandpa. I have a lot of homework. Then Grandpa, I'm meeting some friends. Then he simply stopped coming down. He ate in his room, and I stayed at that big table in front of Cameron and Elise, who ate in silence looking at their plates without seeing me, as if I were a ghost sitting in that chair, a ghost that ate, breathed, but no longer existed for them. One Saturday morning I went up to look for Gavin. I knocked on his door. Gavin, are you there? I heard movement. Yes, Grandpa. I opened the door slowly. He was sitting on his bed with his laptop open, headphones on his ears. He looked at me with that expression of someone who was interrupted. Is something wrong, Grandpa? I smiled at him. Nothing, son. I just wanted to chat for a while. He looked at his laptop, then at me. Grandpa, I am busy right now. Later. I nodded. Of course, son. Later. I closed the door and stood in the hallway. Later. Always later. But that later never came. And I understood that my grandson, whom I loved so much, had also pulled away. I do not know if because they asked him to or because he could no longer stand seeing me like this. But he pulled away. I tried calling him from my cell phone. I dialed his number. It rang 3 times. Gavin answered, Grandpa. His voice sounded strange, uncomfortable. Gavin, son, why don't you come down to chat with me anymore? There was a long silence, too long. Grandpa, it is just that Dad says you need rest, that we should not bother you much. Bother. I had never said that. I had never asked for that. Gavin, I do not need rest. I need company. I need to talk to you. Another silence. Grandpa, I have to hang up. We will talk later, okay? And he hung up. I stayed with the phone in my hand, listening to the call. Ended tone, and I felt something inside me break a little more. Because even my own grandson was abandoning me. My friends also started to disappear. I have 3 lifelong friends, Tom, Edward, and Mike. All 3 were also teachers. We have known each other for more than 40 years. Every Sunday we met at the downtown cafe to play dominoes and talk about everything. But since I moved in with Cameron, those meetings ended. They kept calling, or at least they tried. One Sunday morning, the house phone rang. I was in the living room. Cameron answered. Hello? Ah, Tom. Yes, he is here. But right now he is resting. I will tell him to call you later. Okay. Regards. And he hung up. He did not pass me the call. He did not tell me. He just hung up. Who was it? I asked. Cameron did not even turn around. A friend of yours. I told him you were resting. I got up upset. Cameron, I was not resting. I was sitting here. Why didn't you pass me the call? He sighed like someone tired of explaining the same thing over and over. Dad, why do you need to rest? You cannot be on the phone all day. The doctor said so. The doctor? Dr. Vance had never said that. I tried to get the phone back to call Tom back. Cameron put it in his pocket. Call him later, Dad. Relax now. Later. Always later. And that later never came because every time my friends called, Cameron answered, and always told them the same thing. He is resting. He is busy. He does not feel well. Little by little they stopped calling, and I was left without them. One afternoon I tried to use my cell phone to call Edward. I unlocked the screen, searched for his contact, dialed, but the phone did not respond. The screen froze. I tried again. Nothing. I went down to the living room. Cameron. My cell phone is not working. He looked up from the newspaper. Let me see. I gave it to him. He checked it for a moment. Dad, I think several things got unconfigured. Better I get you a simpler one. These smartphones are too complicated for, well, you know, for you, for your age, for your condition. He did not say it, but he thought it. He kept my cell phone. I'm going to fix it, but he never gave it back. And when I asked, he told me it had broken down, that he was going to buy me another one. But that other one never arrived. And so I stayed, without a phone, without calls, without a voice. I remembered when this house was different, when Grace and I lived in our house in the city. On Sundays, friends, colleagues, ex-students arrived. The house filled with voices, laughter, discussions about books, about politics, about life. Grace made coffee. I took out my domino board. We played until the afternoon. Tom always cheated. Edward always caught him. Mike laughed at both of them, and I was happy, because my house was a living place, a place where people wanted to be. And now I lived in a silent house, where no one spoke to me, where no one visited me. One afternoon I went down to the kitchen. Elise was cooking. I approached slowly. Elise, can I use the house phone? She stopped chopping onions. She looked at me surprised. What for Arthur? To call my friends, I wanted to say. To hear a voice that is not yours. To feel that I still exist outside these 4 walls. But I only said to make a call. She wiped her hands on her apron. Better ask Cameron. He arrives in an hour. It was not a direct refusal. It was worse. It was an I do not trust you to use the phone alone. And I realized that even the house phone was out of my reach, as if they were afraid I would call someone, that I would tell something, that I would ask for help. If you are listening to my story, please tell me in the comments where you are watching us from. Sometimes knowing there is someone out there listening to me gives me strength to keep telling this. Because believe me, there were moments when I wanted to give up, when I wanted to accept what everyone told me, that I was crazy, that I was confused, that it was better to let go. But something deep inside told me no, that this was not normal, that a son does not isolate his father like this, that a family does not treat someone they supposedly love like this. And that little voice, small but stubborn, was the only thing that kept me sane in the middle of all that madness. That night, lying in my bed, I looked at the dark ceiling and thought about everything I had lost in those 3 months. I lost Grace. I lost my house. I lost my phone. I lost my friends. I lost conversations with my grandson. I lost my dignity at the bank, at the pharmacy, on the street. I lost my voice. And the worst is that all that had been taken from me, slowly, carefully, with soft words and fake smile. It is for your own good, Dad. It is to take care of you. It is for your safety. And I had let it happen. Because I was weak. Because I was alone. Because a part of me really believed I was losing my mind. But that night, something changed. I do not know what it was exactly. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was rage. Maybe it was the last thing I had left of pride. But there in the darkness of that room that was not mine, in that house that did not feel like home, I made a decision. I was not going to give up. Not yet. Because if I really was losing my mind, then I had nothing to lose investigating. And if I was not losing it, then someone was making me believe I was. And that believe me was much worse, because it meant that my own son, the person I trusted most, after Grace, was betraying me. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in months, I did not feel fear. I felt determination, small, fragile, but there. And I clung to it like someone clinging to a life preserver in the middle of a storm. The next night, I decided to stay awake. I was not going to take the pills Elise left on the nightstand every night, the ones that were supposedly to help me sleep better. That night, when she came up with the glass of water and the 2 white capsules, I took them in front of her. "Good night, Arthur." She closed the door. I waited 5 minutes. I went to the bathroom. I spit them out. I threw them down the toilet. I went back to bed. I lay down dressed with my clothes on under the covers. I turned off the light. And I waited. My heart was beating hard. I did not know what I was looking for exactly. But I knew that if the noises were real, if someone was making them tonight, I was going to discover them. 2 hours passed. Nothing. Only the dense silence of the sleeping house. I started to doubt. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe it was all my imagination. But just when I was about to give up, I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. In the hallway. They were coming from the stairs. They were getting closer. They passed in front of my door. They continued towards Gavin's room. I waited a moment. Then slowly, I got up. I opened my door without making noise. The hallway was dark, but I managed to see a shadow going down the stairs. A shadow that was not Cameron. Younger, thinner. I went down behind, holding onto the railing barefoot so as not to make noise. I reached the living room. The shadow was no longer there, but the back patio door was ajar, and I felt a draft of cold air. I went out to the backyard. The moonlight illuminated everything with that silvery tone that makes things seem unreal. I looked around. No one. But then I saw it. On the concrete floor next to the jasmine pots, there were footprints. Shoe prints. Fresh. Wet from the dew. I examined them closely. They were sneakers. Sports sneakers. Large size. With a zigzag pattern on the sole. I use slippers in the house. Cameron uses dress shoes. Elise uses heels. Gavin never comes down at these hours. And besides these footprints, came from outside, from the back gate that leads to the alley. Someone had entered, someone who did not live here, and I had the proof. I went up to my room again with my heart racing, not from fear, from excitement, from relief, because those footprints meant something crucial. I was not crazy. Someone did enter this house, someone who should not be here. I sat on my bed trembling, not from cold, but from adrenaline. I searched in the drawer of my nightstand. I found an old notebook I had brought from my house, one where Grace wrote down recipes. There were blank pages at the end. I took out a pen, and I wrote with shaking but clear handwriting. Thursday night, February 13th, 6:40 a.m. Sneaker footprints in the backyard, zigzag pattern. Someone entered through the back gate. I kept it under the mattress. It was my first record, my first evidence, and I felt that for the first time in months I had control of something. The next day I went down early. The backyard floor was already dry. The footprints had disappeared, but I had seen them, and I had written them down. Elise was preparing breakfast. I approached carefully. "Good morning, Elise," she greeted me without turning. "Good morning, Arthur," I asked, trying to sound casual. "Did someone come last night?" I heard noises. She stopped beating the eggs. She looked at me. "No, Arthur. No one came. We all slept." But there was something in her voice, a small doubt, a hesitation. The next day, Cameron and Elise left early. They said they had some paperwork to do. They left me alone. Gavin was locked in his room as always. I stayed sitting in the living room looking at those nursing home brochures, feeling my life slipping through my fingers. But I could not stay there. I could not just wait for them to lock me up. So I made a decision. I put on my jacket, the one Grace gave me for our last anniversary. I put on my good shoes, and I left the house without asking for permission. Without telling anyone. I just left. I walked through the neighborhood streets until I found a taxi. "To the downtown square, please." The driver nodded, and for the first time in months I felt something like freedom. I arrived downtown at the square, where Grace and I used to spend Sundays, where we ate ice cream in the afternoons, where we sat on that wrought iron bench under the big laurel tree just to talk, to look at each other, to be together. I went straight to that bench. It was empty. I sat down. I took Grace's photo out of my wallet. I looked at it. "My love, I do not know what to do," I told her in a low voice. People passed around me. Families, couples, children, running street vendors' life. And me there, a broken old man talking to a photo. I closed my eyes. I breathed in the fresh morning air deeply. And when I opened them, there was someone standing in front of me. Mr. Arthur Ferrer. I looked up. It was a man of about 50 average height, with thick glasses, well dressed. He looked at me with a mixture of surprise and joy. I did not recognize him at first. "Yes?" I asked, confused. He smiled. "It is me, Mr. Arthur. Oscar Underwood. I was your student. Class of '99. Oscar." The name hit me like lightning. Oscar Underwood. The shy boy who sat in the first row. The one who always asked smart questions. The one who wrote detective stories. Oscar, of course. Of course I remember. My voice broke a little. He sat next to me without me inviting him. "Mr. Arthur, I have not seen you in years. How are you?" And there on that bench with that man who had been my student more than 20 years ago, everything collapsed. I could not hold up the mask. I could not pretend I was okay. I broke down. "Oscar, I am not okay." And I started talking. I told him everything, without filters, without shame. I told him about Grace, about moving in with Cameron, about the noises, about the things disappearing, about the conversations I heard, about Frank, about the plan, about the notebook, about the doctor, about the nursing home brochures, about everything. I spoke, and the words came out like a river after a broken dam. And Oscar listened to me. He did not interrupt me. He did not look at me with pity. He just listened. When I finished, there were tears in my eyes, and I felt empty, but also relieved. Because for the first time in months, someone had listened to me. Oscar stayed quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. "Mr. Arthur, do you remember what I do now?" I shook my head. "I am a forensic expert. I work with the district attorney's office. I specialize in evidence analysis." He looked at me fixedly. "And if what you are telling me is true, and my gut tells me it is, then it is not just family abuse. It is a crime, fraud, false imprisonment, maybe even attempted dispossession." He took off his glasses. He cleaned them with his shirt. "Mr. Arthur, you taught me something very important when I was in your class. You taught me that the truth always leaves traces. Always. And if your son is doing what you say, then there are traces. We just have to find them." I felt something light up inside me. A small spark. Hope. "Oscar, but how? I have no proof. They found my notebook. My cell phone does not work. The doctor is on their side. Who is going to believe me? Oscar smiled. It was not a mocking smile. It was the smile of someone who has a plan. Mr. Arthur, I am going to believe you, and I am going to help you get proof that no one can deny. He took out his cell phone. He made a call. Charles, it is Oscar. I need you to get me 2 micro cameras. The good ones, with audio. The ones we use in undercover operations. Yes, for today if possible. Perfect. Thanks. He hung up. He looked at me. Mr. Arthur, we are going to record everything. We are going to get video evidence. And when we have it, your son will not be able to deny anything. But I still doubted. Oscar, even if we have videos, he has doctors. He has signed papers. He has everything set up. Oscar nodded. That is why we need something else. We need a lawyer. Someone who can review those papers you sign. Someone who can initiate legal actions. He stayed thinking. Do you have a lawyer friend? Someone you trust? I thought. Tom Barrett, my lifelong friend. We studied together. He went into law. I went into literature, but we were always friends, until they isolated me. Tom, I said, I have a friend, a lawyer, but I have not spoken to him in months. I do not know if. Oscar was already dialing. Give me his number, Mr. Arthur. I gave it to him. Oscar called. Mr. Barrett, good afternoon. My name is Oscar Underwood. I'm a forensic expert. I'm calling you because I am with Mr. Arthur Ferrer. Your friend. Yes, him. Sir, he needs urgent help. It is a delicate situation. Could you meet with us? Perfect. At the downtown cafe in an hour. Thank you very much. He hung up. He looked at me. He is coming. I could not believe it. After months of feeling invisible, of feeling that no one listened to me, suddenly there were 2 people moving to help me. 2 people who believed me. Oscar put a hand on my shoulder. Mr. Arthur, you taught me to never give up, to seek the truth, always. Now, let me return that favor. An hour later, the 3 of us were in the downtown cafe. Tom arrived with his leather briefcase, his hair completely white, but his eyes still sharp. He hugged me. Arthur, brother, where had you been hiding? I called 1,000 times. I explained everything again. Tom listened with an increasingly serious face. When I finished, he took out a notebook. He started taking notes. Arthur, the first thing I need are those papers you signed at the bank. I need to see exactly what you signed. If they made you sign a general power of attorney, we can revoke it. But I need to see the document. Then he looked at Oscar. Can you get the recordings? Oscar nodded. In 2 days, I have the cameras. I install them myself in your son's house. Discreet, no one will notice them. Tom continued. Arthur, I also need you to get an independent psychological exam with a doctor who has no relationship with your son to prove that you are in full possession of your faculties. I know an excellent psychiatrist, Dr. Garner. She is strict but fair. If she certifies that you are well, that certificate carries a lot of legal weight. I nodded. For the first time in months, I felt I was not alone, that there was a plan, that there was hope. Oscar spoke. Mr. Arthur, I need you to act normal in your house. Do not raise suspicions. Let them continue with their plan. The more confident they are, the more they will talk. And we are going to be recording everything. He looked at me fixedly. Can you do that? Can you hold on a few more days? I looked at both of them. Tom, my lifelong friend, Oscar, my former student who had become my ally, and for the first time since Grace died, I did not feel alone. I took a deep breath. I can hold on. Tom closed his notebook. Good. Then this is what we are going to do. Arthur goes back home, acts normal. Oscar installs the cameras tomorrow. I will take care of getting the appointment with Dr. Garner for the day after tomorrow, and we start building the case. He stood up. He shook my hand. Arthur, we are not going to let them do this to you. I promise you. And when I left that cafe, walking back to the taxi that would take me to Cameron's house, I was no longer defeated. I went with a purpose, with a plan, and with something I had not felt in months. Hope. Oscar arrived the next afternoon. Cameron and Elise had gone out shopping. Gavin was at the university. I let him in quickly. He brought a small backpack. Mr. Arthur, these are the cameras. He took out 2 tiny devices, no bigger than a quarter. This one goes in the living room. We hide it in the bookshelf between the books. It has a wide angle. Records everything. This other one goes in the hallway, above the door frame. No one will notice it. He installed them in less than 15 minutes. Efficient. Professional. They have battery for 3 days of continuous recording and transmit live to my computer. I will be monitoring. He showed me his cell phone. There was the image of my living room in real time. Mr. Arthur, act normal and trust me. That night I pretended to take the pills again. Elise brought them to me as always. I put them in my mouth, drank water, smiled. She left. I spit them out. I lay down dressed, and I waited. I knew Oscar was on the other side watching everything. That gave me strength. At exactly 2:37 in the morning, I heard movement downstairs. Footsteps. I peeked barely through my bedroom door. It was Cameron. He was going down the stairs in pajamas, but awake, alert. I saw him go to the electrical panel next to the kitchen. He opened the small metal door, and he turned off the main breakers. The house plunged into total darkness. Only the moonlight remained entering through the windows. My heart beat strong, but I stayed still, observing. 5 minutes later, I heard the back gate, then the kitchen door opening. Soft steps entering. Frank. Although I could not see him well in the dark, I knew it was him. I heard whispers. Cameron speaking low. Quick! Move the dining chairs and put his glasses in the bathroom again. Frank's voice, younger, answered. And the chains. Later. First, the inside stuff. I heard furniture dragging, objects moving, footsteps going up the stairs. They passed in front of my door. I was paralyzed, holding my breath. They entered my room. I had left the door ajar on purpose. I heard them rummage through my things, grab the glasses, leave them on the nightstand. Frank took my glasses. He went out. He went to the bathroom. He left them there. Then they went down. I heard more noises, more movements, and then Elise's voice. She was also awake. She was also part of this. Almost done, she asked. Cameron answered, yes. Frank, go to the backyard. Do the chain thing, footsteps going out. The unmistakable sound of metal chains dragging across the concrete of the backyard. The same sound that had woken me up so many nights. The same sound they had told me was my imagination. It lasted about 2 minutes. Then silence. Frank entered again. Ready. Cameron. Perfect. Now go. And do not come back until Friday. Frank left. The gate closed. Cameron returned to the electrical panel. He turned on the breakers. The light came back, and everyone went up to their rooms as if nothing had happened. I stayed awake the rest of the night, not from fear, from rage, from a dark satisfaction. Because now everything was recorded. Every movement, every word, every second of that calculated torture. The next morning I went down to breakfast, as if nothing. I found my glasses in the bathroom. I pretended surprise. Here again, I do not understand. Elise looked at me with that fake compassion. Mr. Arthur, I already told you. Sometimes one does things without realizing it. Cameron looked at me, evaluating me. Did you sleep well, Dad? I smiled. Yes, son. Very well. But inside I was counting the hours, because the plan was in motion and they had no idea. 2 days later, Cameron announced during breakfast, Dad, we are going to have a special dinner on Saturday. I want to invite Gavin, Mrs. Evelyn, some friends. A family gathering. He looked at me with that fake smile. I knew exactly what that dinner was. It was the announcement. The moment where he was going to tell everyone that I needed special care, that they were going to commit me, that it was for my own good. I nodded calmly. Sounds good, son. Elise looked at me surprised. I think she expected resistance, but I just smiled. That same afternoon I called Oscar from a public phone. Oscar, it is Saturday. The dinner. Do you have everything? He answered confidently. Everything ready, Mr. Arthur. Tom and I will arrive at 8:30, just when it is starting. Perfect. Saturday arrived. The house was full of movement. Elise cooking. Cameron arranging the living room. Gavin came down from his room somewhat surprised that there was a gathering. Mrs. Evelyn arrived with a cake. Mr. Arthur, nice to see you. 2 more couples arrived, friends of Cameron I did not know well. The table was set elegantly. Candles, wine glasses. All very nice. Very civilized. We sat down. Cameron presided over the table. I was on his right. Gavin on his left. Elise across from me. The others distribute around. We started dinner. Trivial conversation, the weather, the news. Gavin talked about college, all very normal. But I felt the tension. I knew Cameron was waiting for the perfect moment. Dessert arrived. Cameron wiped his mouth with a napkin. He cleared his throat. Well, friends, family, I gathered you today because I want to share something important. The table fell silent. All eyes on him. Cameron looked at me with that expression of fake sadness that he had also practiced. As you know, my dad has lived with us since my mom passed away. And well, it is not easy to say this, but lately his mental health has deteriorated a little. Mrs. Evelyn nodded passively. Gavin frowned. Cameron continued. He loses things. He hears noises no one else hears. The doctor says he needs special care. And after thinking about it a lot, Elise and I have decided that the best thing for him is, he paused dramatically, a place where they care for him professionally, where he is safe. There were murmurs around the table. Gavin looked at me confused. Dad, are you committing Grandpa? Cameron raised his hands in a calming gesture. It is not committing, son. It is caring. It is giving him the attention he needs, and that we can no longer. The doorbell rang, loud, insistent. Cameron stopped. He frowned. Who could it be at this hour? Elise got up to open. I stayed seated with my heart beating strong, but my face calm. The door opened. I heard voices, and then they entered the living room. Oscar with a formal suit and a tablet in his hand. Tom with his leather briefcase and his imposing lawyer presence. Cameron went pale. Who are you? Tom spoke first, clear authoritative voice. Good evening. I am Tom Barrett, attorney for Mr. Arthur Ferrer. Cameron stood up. Lawyer? What are you talking about? Oscar advanced. He connected his tablet to the living room television. Allow me to show you something. The screen lit up, and there it was. The recording, the black and white night image of the living room of that house, the date and time in the corner. Everyone watched, and then the scene unfolded before their eyes. Cameron coming down. Turning off the light, Frank entering, the whispers, the movements, the chains, everything, with clear audio, the unmistakable words. Move his glasses to the bathroom. Put the chains in the backyard. Just a few more days and we commit him. The silence in that room was absolute. When the video ended, no one moved. Mrs. Evelyn had her hand on her mouth, horrified. Gavin looked at his father with eyes full of tears. Dad, what did you do? Elise tried to get up, but Tom blocked her path. Sit down, ma'am. This is just beginning. Cameron was white, completely white. He tried to speak. It is a misunderstanding. I stood up, slowly. Everyone looked at me. I walked until I stood in front of my son. I looked him straight in the eyes, and I spoke with a voice that did not tremble, a firm voice, dignified, the voice of the man I was and should never have ceased to be. You wanted to make me lose my mind, Cameron. You wanted to steal my house, my dignity, my sanity. You wanted to bury me alive. I paused, but the one who lost his mind was you. Tom took some documents out of his briefcase. We have here 3 formal complaints, one for fraud, another for false imprisonment, and another for psychological abuse against an elderly adult. He handed the papers to Cameron. He took them with shaking hands. We also have a temporary eviction order issued by a judge. You and your wife have 24 hours to vacate this property while the case is investigated. Cameron tried to protest. But this is my house. Tom looked at him with professional coldness. This house belongs to Mr. Arthur Ferrer, who never voluntarily ceded the property. The documents he signed at the bank were obtained under deceit, and we have testimony from the manager willing to testify about the irregularities of the process," Oscar added. "We also have an arrest warrant for Frank Rios for trespassing and complicity in fraud, and an open investigation against Dr. Anselmo Vance for medical negligence and complicity in an abuse scheme against an elderly adult." Cameron let himself fall into the chair. Elise was crying in silence. The guests watched, horrified. Mrs. Evelyn approached me. "Mr. Arthur, I did not know. I swear I knew nothing of this." I took her hand. "I know, Mrs. Evelyn." Gavin stood up abruptly. He ran out to the garden. I followed him. I found him sitting on a bench with his face in his hands, crying. I sat next to him. "Grandpa, I did not know. I swear to God, I did not know." His voice was broken. I put my hand on his shoulder. "I know, son, I know." He looked at me with red eyes. "Dad told me you were bad, that you were confused. I believed him, and that is why I stopped visiting you. That is why I stopped talking to you. I thought I was helping you by giving you space." He broke down again. "Forgive me, Grandpa. Forgive me for not noticing, for not asking you how you were." I hugged him. That hug we had not given each other for months. "You have nothing to forgive, Gavin. You were also a victim of this. Your dad manipulated you just like me." We stayed there for a while, hugged, while inside the house Cameron's world collapsed. That same night, Cameron and Elise packed suitcases. Tom stayed present to ensure they did not take anything that was not theirs. Gavin decided to stay with me. "Grandpa, if you let me, I want to stay with you. I do not want to be with them." I nodded. "This is your house, my son." It always was. Cameron passed in front of me before leaving. He looked at me. For a second I saw something in his eyes. Regret. Shame. I do not know. But I no longer felt rage, only a deep sadness, because that man leaving was my son, and despite everything he did to me, a part of me would always remember him as the boy he was. But that part no longer had power over me. The following week, Frank was arrested. They found him in the suburbs, trying to hide at a cousin's house. The evidence of the recordings was irrefutable. Dr. Vance lost his license while the Bioethics Commission investigated his case. Several of his patients started reporting similar irregularities. Tom helped me revoke all the powers of attorney I had signed. My house was still mine. My money was still mine. And my mind, that mind they tried to destroy, was clearer than ever. I returned to my house in the city. Gavin came with me. The house smelled closed, abandoned, but we opened windows, cleaned, and little by little we brought it back to life. I started walking again through the streets of downtown, through my beloved city, and people greeted me again. "Mr. Arthur, nice to see you." "Professor, we thought you were sick." "Mr. Ferrer, we missed you." One day, walking through the square, I met Mrs. Evelyn. She looked ashamed. "Mr. Arthur, I want to apologize. Cameron lied to me. He told me you were bad, and I, without asking, told other neighbors. I contributed to isolating you." I looked at her. "Mrs. Evelyn, you had no way of knowing. The deception was very well put together. She had tears in her eyes. Even so, I should have asked. I should have spoken to you directly." I squeezed her hand. "Now you know, and that is what matters." One afternoon, sitting in the living room of my house, I took out Grace's photo, the same one I had carried in my wallet during all those dark months. I looked at it for a long time. "I told you, my love, I was not going to let them take everything from me. I fought like you taught me to fight." I smiled at that photo, and I won. I put the photo in its usual place on the shelf in the living room, next to the photos of our wedding of Cameron, when he was a child, of our whole life together. Because despite everything, those memories were still good, and no one could take them from me. Gavin entered the living room. "Grandpa, are you okay?" "You." I nodded. "Yes, my son. I am fine." Oscar came to visit me often. We sat to drink coffee and talk about books, about life, about everything. One day he said to me, "Mr. Arthur, do you know what impacted me the most about all this?" I shook my head. That you never stopped seeking the truth, even when everyone told you that you were crazy, even when you had no one on your side. You kept looking. That is what you taught me in your class 20 years ago, and that was what saved you. I smiled at him. Oscar, there is a phrase I always told my students. The truth always comes to light. You just have to have patience and faith in yourself. He nodded. And I believe you, Mr. Arthur. That is why I am here. Tom helped me with all the legal formalities. The trial against Cameron and Elise continued its course. They would probably receive a suspended sentence and community service. I did not want them to go to jail, not for them, but for me, because I had learned that revenge cures nothing. What cures is justice, and justice had already been done. Gavin asked me one day, Grandpa, will you ever forgive my dad? I thought about it. I do not know, son, maybe one day, but forgiving does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean letting it happen again. He nodded. I understand. And I knew that boy was going to be okay because he had learned something. Many never learn that love does not justify abuse. If you are listening to this story up to here, I want to tell you something important. No matter how old you are, no matter if you are 80 like me or 20 like my grandson, if something does not add up in your life, if you feel something is wrong, even if everyone tells you otherwise, trust your instinct. I almost lost my house. I almost lost my dignity. I almost lost my freedom. But I did not lose my mind, because deep down I knew something was wrong, and I did not stop seeking the truth. And if you are going through something similar, please do not stay silent. Seek help. Speak to someone. Always, always there is someone who will believe you. There is always an Oscar, a Tom, someone who will listen to you. Today, several months later, I am sitting in my living room writing this. Gavin is in his room studying. The house smells of freshly made coffee outside, the birds are heard, and I am at peace. It was not easy to get here. There were nights where I thought I would not make it, where I thought I was really losing my mind. But I resisted, and I won. Not because I am special, but because I did not give up. And that is something anyone can do. Not give up. Keep believing in oneself. Keep seeking the truth. So I ask you, did you ever distrust someone close and they told you that you were crazy? Did you ever feel that everyone was against you? If this story touched your soul, leave me a comment. Tell me your experience and please subscribe. Every story I upload can be the one someone needs, to hear the one that can save someone from what I lived. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for believing in me. And remember, never, never let anyone tell you that your reality is not valid. Take care and see you in the next story.